Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your breakfast bankroll for Tuesday, July 26, 2022. There's 5 days left in this month. You turn the calendar, it's August 1st, and guess what pops into your mind? Football! That's what anyone thinks about. Football right around the corner. Kids back to school. Fall. Pigskin. But we got a lot to talk about before then. And good friend, local, right down the road, about an hour, Julian Edlow from DraftKings has blessed our studios for a show today, talking some hot stove topic, I guess we could say, yesterday. And we had some great talk back and forth. And then we'll try to break down maybe some college football futures or NFL, whichever way we go. But let's bring him in. From Boston himself, the one and only Mr. Julian Edlow.
How we doing, Jeff?
Morning, Jules. What's happening?
Usually when I come on this show, I know you're a big baseball bettor and we talk baseball plays. I run mine by you sometimes. I've been putting a little bit more out with where we are on the sports calendar. I won on the Mariners last night. I won on the Royals last night. But the 2-unit play was, I was like, I don't know how these spots are going to lose. Astros and Dodgers money line. Put them together at -110. They both lose. Every time I come on the show, I feel like I have a baseball story to be like, just that's so baseball. And that parlay was so baseball.
And baseball is 162 games, as you know. It's a marathon. It's the one sport, the one day-to-day grind that will just hit you right into reality. I mean, a perfect example for me, 5-1 over the weekend. And then we talked on Sunday. We had 3 games in play. We did basically a 3-legged 3 parlays, all hit. We are, I mean, literally for the weekend, we were plus almost 24 units if you put 1 unit on every play. Yesterday, 0-3. So it's a reality check.
Yep. I mean, 0-3 happens in baseball. That's the way it's going to go.
But the good thing that, you know, your 2-team parlay, that's the beauty of it, Julian, is the fact that you didn't run to the window and just blindly play the money lines and then lose $2 here, $2 here. You're smart. You put them together. You put a parlay. They both lose. You lose. But it could have been a lot worse.
Could have been a lot worse. I wish it wasn't the 2-unit play that I went with. So I did lose too.
So I almost wore my shirt like that too. We would have been double Oregon. We got a little Oregon, Texas kind of sort of going here. And I saw Thanksgiving night, Mr. Knight's basketball tournament. We got a little Yukon, Oregon. So I'll be all ready for that one. But let's talk. I mean, let's cut to the chase. We had some great talk. I mean, the talk yesterday all along heating up was Jaylen Brown to the Nets, an offer, then a counter offer. My concern very simply was twofold. Number one, selling your soul for 1 or 2 banners. 37 years old versus 25 years old. The kid hasn't even hit his prime. But as you talked about, he's here for 2 more years and sounds like he doesn't want to be here. He wants his own show. It almost sounds like a little Kyrie to me, but I'm just going to give you the stage and the floor and the mic and let you take over and just your thoughts.
Yeah, I really don't. We have to talk about it because it's a story and it's big names. I don't think that there's much to it. Durant requested his trade a month ago and nothing's come of it. And the best suitor potentially in the Suns matched a contract with Ayton, so he can't be traded. So that takes, a team in the Suns that was once -220 to land Durant off the table. So Brooklyn's a little desperate. So now is the time. Why not come out and reference the team that's rumored to have the best package and make clear that they've made an offer to try and push whoever, Miami, Toronto, whoever it may be, to come up with a better offer. So Shams and Woj are both fantastic reporters, and they get great information, but they've also been used a little bit over the last couple of months, and we've seen that. No better example than the NBA draft fiasco with who's going number 1 to Orlando. Not that I don't know why it makes a difference when you have the number 1 pick, but they threw Woj, Jabari Smith, and went Banchero. I don't know what they were working on, but that's the way they decided to do it. So I don't know if the Celtics actually offered Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant or not. I don't think they're going to go up to the offer that the Nets said of Brown, Smart, multiple picks, and maybe another role player. So to me, this is all coming from the Nets side, looking to improve offers from elsewhere. But the story becomes, and if you're looking at it from a Celtics standpoint, the only thing that matters is what is Jaylen Brown's commitment to Boston? Because if it's going to be 2 years, then there's nothing better to get back in return than Kevin Durant, even if he is 34, if Jaylen Brown's going to walk in a couple of years. So you need to look at it that way. I think the whole narrative is that Brown might not be interested in returning and wants to run his own team, but that he's actually pretty happy in Boston. So I think there's a good chance that he would re-sign here, especially once we see what Tatum's situation is. But he seems committed here. They both say that they're committed here. So I think this is a whole bunch of smoke. I think we are seeing the Celtics roster right now. They need to add one big, but I think this is what they're going to open up with for the season. And this is mostly Brooklyn trying to push other teams for more by using Jaylen Brown's name, because Jaylen Brown is by far the best player that any team can give in return for Kevin Durant.
Our colleague was talking, Kevin Walsh, yesterday. I caught one of his clips, and basically seems to think, that Toronto is the one that's just sitting here playing cat and mouse. They're the ones in the catbird seat. They have the most to offer, and then they're just playing possum. And the other team that you brought up is Miami. Do you see, honestly, a move here, or are they going to get stuck with Durant?
If I had to bet on it, and I wish that I had put these plays out, because at one point in time, Kevin Durant was plus 260 or something to return to the Nets, and Kyrie Irving was plus 350 to return to the Nets. I think that they're going to most likely, unless they really sell for pennies on the dollar, Brooklyn's going to be opening up the season with those two guys on the roster, because it's so difficult to find trades. It would take something like, I don't think Boston's going to happen. And I don't think a Tyler Hero package why is that worth moving Kevin Durant? So unless Toronto steps up with Scotty Barnes on the table, who is a very nice prospect, just won Rookie of the Year in an Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham draft, unless Scotty Barnes is on the table from Toronto with some little pieces scattered around it, I would say that Kevin Durant's going to stay put.
All right, let's switch gears. You want to go NFL, CFL? I saw your work last week. You did a ton in the college ranks. We're getting closer to the end of August and where we really kick off the start of college football, week 0. I saw what you said about Georgia. Listen, we had Georgia. I was with Mr. Sharapian in early August last year, sitting at the South Point when Georgia was plus 800, and we grabbed that. And then before the Clemson game, they dropped to plus 400, and we talked about that. And I saw your work on them running the schedule. Now, I'm a diehard. I love Georgia. I love everything about them. You get an Alabama team now that a year off, salty, SC in the championship game, get blown out. No, they lose. Okay, now you're getting great recruiting. An A&M team, highly touted. Jimbo just can't win that big one. Are we set up as usual for a Georgia, Alabama? I mean, can you see any way around that?
No. I think Alabama is going to be a double-digit favorite in every game, and I think Alabama is going to run the table. We got that one cushion on DK Sportsbook, cushion for one loss to go 11-1. Rather than offering 11 flat, we do have 10.5 on the board. You got to pay for it. It's like minus 250 or more. We opened it up at minus 190. That's when I put it up. put it out. I couldn't believe we opened it at minus 190. I know that sounds like a lot, but Alabama, I mean, we had Phil Steele on the Unreasonable Odds podcast last week. We put that out last night. That's something that you want to check out for sure if you're doing your college football research. He said, no way Alabama's losing 2 games. That's just not going to happen. And personally, I don't think they're going to drop 1 because the closest point spread most likely on the schedule, maybe that Texas A&M game, Tennessee. Texas A&M, though, is going to be at home, and that's a revenge spot. Their only regular season loss last year. I think they're going to show up in that game. I think Tennessee is the biggest threat, and I still don't think Tennessee is going to beat Alabama. So I think Alabama is going to run the table. Georgia, I could see slipping up coming off the national championship game. I don't think it's going to be that opener to Oregon. They're 17 and a half point favorites. Georgia has an easier schedule than Alabama. I think Alabama's the better team, but I think Georgia has close to as good a shot to go undefeated just based on how the schedule falls. But if I had to guess on Georgia, where I'm undefeated on Alabama, if you're making me pick, if I had to guess on Georgia, I would say coming off the national championship and losing 8 starters on defense, I think they'll slip up somewhere and probably go 11-1. And we'll see Alabama and Georgia in the SEC championship game. I put out Alabama to win the SEC right when that came out. I think it was minus 110. I think Alabama is going to win that game again as a favorite, unlike last year when they did it as an underdog. And one thing on DK Sportsbook, so as I tell people all the time, if you want to bet something, ask me and I'll reach out and I'll say, can we put this on the board? We didn't have college football divisions on the board. I reached out. I said, let's get divisions up, and they got them up. And to my surprise, they are parlayable in most states, which you can't do with conferences. You can't do with win totals. So I already put out, as soon as they came out, I wrote up an article. I was like, I can't believe this. You just do Alabama to win the SEC West, which is minus 600. Georgia to win the SEC East, which is minus 550, and Ohio State to win the Big Ten East. That just means those 3 games. We need the Alabama-Georgia game that we think we're all going to see in the SEC title game, and you just need Ohio State, not even to win, but just reach the Big Ten championship game, and you get that down to minus 125.
Wow.
You're stuffing your face with chalk, but like, those teams all have a chance to go 12-0, and if they slip up once, they're 11-1, and they're still making their conference title game. We're talking about like 2-3 losses for these teams not to get there, and that just seems hard to imagine.
Our producer, Mr. Kiefer Bagwell, 11-1. Bama losing to Ole Miss on my wedding day, 100%, because I won't be able to be there to see it. So
I'll be pretty angry if that happens, but I'll take an Ohio State and Georgia loss. You can have them. Just give me Bama 12-0.
You know, it's so funny too, because Ohio State always has that one hiccup, and then you're just holding your breath, and they always come November, find a way. Are they in? Are they getting to that title game? Georgia last year, I watching that defense was just like men versus boys.
Yeah.
And we talked
so
about
that's what's going to be different about Georgia. They're going to have a really good defense, but not one that's just going to keep everybody to like 10 points.
And the funny thing in the SEC title game, which I don't think got really talked enough about, was the sense of urgency for Georgia. They were already in the Final Four. It was Bama that needed that win and the sense of urgency. So it was like Georgia wasn't opening up that full playbook. But come in the title game, you could see them just opening it up and emerging as that game progressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Georgia was the better team last year, and Alabama got the win when they needed to get it. And, you know, I would have liked to see how that game played out if, you know, you had Mechie tear his ACL, Mechie tore his ACL, I believe, in the SEC title game. And then Williams tore his ACL in the championship game. If both of those guys played the full championship game, I would have liked to have seen where it went. Georgia still probably got it done, but Alabama would be more in that game late. But yeah, this year I see no way that those two teams don't win at least 11 games and play in the SEC title game, and likely make the playoff. I think Georgia's the third or fourth best team in college football. But if they slip up once in the regular season to Tennessee or whoever it may be, Kentucky, um, then they're going to be the team that needs to win that SEC championship game. Because if they lose that, now they have 2 losses. And what if a team like Utah that I'm really high on is 12-0, something like that. So Ohio State, they generally do slip up once. Last year they slipped up to Oregon early, and then the last game was just to decide the division, and they lost at Michigan for the first time in forever. And that's how they got 2 losses and wound up out of the Big Ten title game and out of the college football playoff. They're bringing back CJ Stroud. Those receivers are ridiculous. They're not going to let that. They're not going to let that happen again.
No, and I had Ron on last week. He broke down the ACC, and I was looking around at a few shops. You can get Clemson at like 14-1. Miami, all the hype there. They're just going to take a few years to season there. The big hype train in the ACC is NC State and everyone that they're bringing back. But outside looking in, you got your Bama's. Ohio State is just stupid this year. And if they ever can get that defense together, look out, because I keep saying just auto bet their team total. If you ever get it under 36 and a hook, just keep hitting it and hitting it. They're going to just it's going to be like an arcade game watching them scoring. Now, Georgia, you add there. It's not even August yet, Jules. Outside, give me a team or two that's going to surprise us. There's always a surprise every year. You just talked about Utah. Who are you seeing that initially that you might just be sprinkling some beer and pizza on?
Yeah, first of all, you're spot on with Ohio State. Like I'm not laying 14 and a half with them against Notre Dame in that opener, but I'm already looking at, should I wait for the team total or should I take the over 58 in the game against Notre Dame? Is their defense going to be bad enough to let up those points? But the poor defense works hand in hand with that, and they're going to keep scoring. So Ohio State team totals and game overs is probably the way that I'm going to be backing them this year. In terms of like surprise teams, Utah is my favorite team. You can get them at plus 500 to make the college football playoff on DK Sportsbook if you want. You can play them over 9 wins. I already have them over 8.5. It's at 9 now. You can play them to make the Pac-12 title game at plus 115. You can take them to win the Pac-12 at plus 250. I like it all. You can take them -2 against Florida in the Swamp in week 1. I think they're going to win that game. I'm all about Utah. I think that I showed you when we were out in Vegas, little pizza money, Cam Rising, Heisman. It's like plus 8,000 or something, I think, on DK Sportsbook, because I think Utah can go 11-1. They're a 3-point dog, I think, at Oregon. I like Utah +3. I think Oregon's going to have a good season, go over 8.5 because of the schedule. They're going to get smoked by Georgia in week 1 in Atlanta and then rip off 6-7 in a row. But I think Utah can beat them. Utah smoked them twice last year, and they're bringing back 17 starters. They're bringing back the quarterback. Utah is going to be fantastic. I think they have a real chance to be one of the 4 college football playoff teams. And then beyond that, I'll buy the NC State hype. I played them over 6.5 last year. They were fantastic. I played them over 8.5 this year. Clemson game is going to be tough because they beat Clemson last year. So Clemson should get up for that game at home to kind of get some revenge. But I'll take NC State +10 in that game. And, I think NC State can win 10 games for sure. The other one would be Pitt, which I mentioned we had Phil Steele on the podcast. He's got Pitt as his number 1 surprise team this season. Pitt over 8.5. I think that they're going to do very well in the ACC. They should win 9-10 games. They lose Kenny Pickett, and I think that's why people are easily down on them, the ACC champs. But they bring in Slovis from USC, who's a very capable quarterback, really good defense. They lose some skill players, but they return all 5 O-linemen. So they're going to be steady on defense and protecting the quarterback and running the ball. So I think Pitt is going to be really good.
We've been talking nothing but puppies, cupcakes, and unicorns. We got a couple minutes before we wrap up here. Give me a couple teams that you're looking at as super hyped and will falter and be like more bust-like.
Yeah, I guess I don't have a sexy one like a team that's really going to stun you that's supposed to be really good that I'm playing an under on. But I do have a couple of unders that I like quite a bit. The first one is UNC. They had that big year with Sam Howell, and they come in ranked 10th overall last year, but we didn't account for all the skill players that they lost, all their top two running backs, the two big time receivers, and they finished 6-6. They were awful. 6-7 if you include the bowl game, I think. So this year they have quarterback issues. They have one really good receiver. I'm blanking on his name. They have one legit receiver going to the NFL, but skill position players not really reloaded from that really good year 2 years ago. Defense is fine, but like you'll find their win total 6.5 some places. We have it 7.5 DK Sportsbook. I'm under 7.5 on them. That's my favorite under by far. You look at the schedule, I just don't necessarily see how they get there. They've got Pitt, which is being priced as a coin flip game. I love Pitt in that game. They've got NC State. They've got Notre Dame. They've got some really hard games in there, and I don't see how they're going to improve from the 6 wins last year. So saying that they're going to go 8-4 in a really good ACC without much improvement just makes no sense to me. So I think that they're priced kind of based off of their recent success the last couple of years versus what they were last year, and that they maybe took a step back. So UNC under. I haven't put this one out yet, but I'm looking into it and probably going to put it out soon. Nevada under. They're sitting at 5 on DK Sportsbook. There's a lot of 4.5s out there, so getting the 5 at -120 is a pretty good price. They were good last year. They went 8-3 last year. They had Carson Strong. So since then, they obviously lose Carson Strong, NFL caliber quarterback. They lost their top 7 receivers, and they have a coaching change and return 6 starters, I believe it is. They lost. Where's the number? Don't quote me on this number. I believe they lost 45 players from their roster from last year. So it's a complete rebuild. So I think that 8 wins last year will kind of scare people off of betting an under 5, but nobody is back. I think that they're going to be a bad, we're talking, and they're going to be favored in their first 3 games, which is scary. But after that, they should probably be a dog 9 times with maybe 1 pick 'em. I think it's going to be a 4-win team. I like the 5 flat. I wouldn't bet it at 4.5. I like the 5 flat because they're not going 6-6 and going to a bowl. So there's some risk of pushing here, which is why it's not my favorite. But you're either pushing on 5 or winning on 4, in my opinion, because this team just doesn't have players.
As always, the crowd has been pounding the whole 25 minutes that we've been here. You can follow Julian at Julian Edlow at DraftKings, at DK Sportsbook, at DK Live. Catch his podcast at the Unreasonable Odd Podcast. And listen, reach out to him. He does answer back any questions about DK. If you are live, up and running, and you don't see something, reach out to him. And he'll reach out to DraftKings, and we'll try to get him on board.
Yeah, reach out no matter what you got. You're looking for a market, I'll answer it. You got a question, I'll answer it. You got some positive feedback, which is rare, I'll appreciate you. You want to troll, as many do, I respond to the trolls, whatever you want to do.
The one and only Julian Edlow. We can't thank you enough, Jules. Everyone out here, you take down those notes. Remember, Utah. Keep hitting the window on Utah.
That's the note.
That is the note. Look forward to another Georgia, Alabama, number whatever it is, and then maybe an Alabama, Ohio State final, which I think will be a hell of one. So everyone, thank you so much. It's been a great morning. We'll be back later this evening for the closing bell and get you ready for the window. Hopefully bounce back from our 0-3 start to the week. See you soon.